Hey listeners, it's Kara, your host. After 176 amazing episodes and hundreds of book recommendations, I wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to find your next great read. The Bookish Lights Roadmap is your guide to all 175 podcast episodes, sorted by genre so you can quickly find the stories that fit your reading mood. From picture books to adult novels and everything in between, it's the perfect way to explore past episodes and discover new favorites. You can find your copy of the Bookish Lights Roadmap at www.bookishlights.com/read/roadmap, or just click the link in the show notes. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights, a podcast where we tell our stories through our favorite books. Each episode features a bookish guest where we will talk about reading, life, and the seasons we're in, all through a thoughtfully paired book flight of recommendations for you. If you're looking for meaningful book recommendations and a space to slow down, you're in the right place. In today's episode, I am chatting with Katherine Scott Crawford. Katherine is the award-winning author of The Miniaturist Assistant and Kiowa Valley, a former backpacking guide, adjunct professor, and recovering academic. Her newspaper column appeared weekly across the country and abroad, including in USA Today, the Detroit Free Press, the Herald Scotland, and more. Winner of a North Carolina Arts Award in Fiction, she holds an MFA in Writing from the Vermont College of Fine Arts. She'd rather be in the woods with her dog than anywhere else, enjoys curious people, adventure, and snow, and believes historical fiction is the best way to time travel. An 11th generation Southerner, she directs writing retreats at a remote mountain lodge in western North Carolina, where she lives with her family. Welcome to the show, Katherine.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, you have so many interesting things in your bio that I'm like, which one do we dig into to kind of kick us off here?
Thank you.
Yes, I'm like, the loves curious people. I'm like, I think that is one of the most important kind of character traits, is just to be curious. And it's not necessarily about people, but just in life.
Just in life. You will
Yeah.
never be bored if you're a curious person.
And we
You know?
can't possibly, I mean, we kind of talked about this on the side, like we can't possibly know it all. So what's the harm in being curious?
Yeah. It only opens up, it like opens up the magic with people, with
Yes.
places, with interests, with, it opens us up to more magic. And I think that's something that we can all use as much as possible of in our lives.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of like my 5-year-old, like he's very into right now, like, well, why is sand called sand? Or why is shoe called shoe? And I'm like, well, I don't know. But like really behind like where these literary words have come from. And I'm like, I don't know, but I hope he doesn't lose that curiosity, right? Because that's just him being curious. Although as much as sometimes I'm like, I couldn't tell you why the garbage can is called garbage can. I don't know.
I used to tell we were talking earlier and I was saying I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old and they still will ask me some things. And now I'm like, I don't know. Let's find out.
Yes.
Like, let's go look it up, and see if we can figure this out.
Yeah. It's always though when I'm like, I'm tying the shoe or we're going to leave or I'm like rolling the trash can out. I'm like, well, now is not the moment to look up like where that came from. I'm not quite sure, but
exactly.
So, well, I feel like we are so much more than these bios. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Well, it's so funny because writing a bio is hard, or I find it hard.
Oh, yeah.
And I like the way this one ended up because I think it got at like some of the truest bits of me, because I am just at heart, I am still like this 11-year-old tomboy who like I grew up in the South. I am a dog lover. I would truly rather be in the woods than anywhere else. I grew up in South Carolina and read early and wanted to be a writer since I was 7. And all of those things are still who I am at my core.
Yeah.
And now I live in the mountains of Western North Carolina, a little town in Western North Carolina. And I have 2 teenage daughters, like I said, and a husband, and I still have a dog. And I love to be outside. and I
And you're a
love
writer.
history. Yeah,
And
and
you're a
I'm a
writer
writer.
now.
And I'm a writer. Yeah. And I get to do it full time, knock on wood right now.
That's
I keep
amazing.
thinking that wonderful thing is going to disappear, so I always knock on wood when I say that out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. Your 7-year-old self is probably doing a dance right now.
Oh my gosh, yes. When she's not tired, she does a big happy dance. Like this is reality. Like this is what I've dreamed of since I was seven
Yeah.
years old. So.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you. That's amazing. So, we are here today to discuss your latest novel, The Miniaturist Assistant. Can you tell the listeners who maybe haven't gotten a chance to pick it up yet a little bit about it?
Sure. So the miniaturist assistant is a historical time travel art mystery novel set in Charleston, South Carolina, in two timelines. It's set in 2004 and in 1804.
Okay.
And in 2004, it's really the story of a woman named Gamble Vance, who is an art conservator at a museum in Charleston, South Carolina. And Charleston is a historic city. It's one of the most important port cities in the U.S. colonies and the British colonies, and then in the early America. And Gamble specializes in these tiny miniature portraits. So think of like cameos. They were
Oh,
these
yeah.
tiny, like 1 to 3 inch tall um, cameos. Now I think of them as like we used to, get our kids' school pictures done or our pictures and we cut them out and put them in
Yes.
our wallets. That's what these miniature portraits were.
Yeah. Great
So Gamble
example.
specializes in conserving these, and they were hugely popular for hundreds of years, but especially in early Charleston. And so she's doing this in 2004, and she unearths a familiar face in a portrait that she is conserving, and she just can't get it out of her head. And all of a sudden, what she thinks are memories start to resurface. And then she sees one night she's walking home, and Charleston has these ancient alleys that are some of her even from the 1600s. And she's
Wow.
walking home, and a young girl appears to her in an alley, and she's wearing 1800s dress, so like early 1800s. Think kind of like Jane Austen.
Okay.
Um, and she turns to Gamble and she begs her to come back.
Ooh, I
So
have the chills. Ooh.
now Gamble has to figure out what the heck's going on, right? So, meanwhile, the other timeline is set in 1804 Charleston, and it stars a man named Daniel Pettigrew, who is actually the artist. He is the miniature portraitist who
Okay.
painted this portrait and others that she has been conserving. And Daniel is this kind of unconventional guy. He's very bohemian. Early Charleston was this crazy, interesting place, not at all like what we tend to kind of think of that time. And he runs this very bohemian household. He has a much younger sister who had to bring up when his parents died young or fairly young. And then he has a free Black family who lives with them and has been with them for years. And so it's just this kind of complicated world. Um, and Gamble turns up and kind of turns things upside down. So I
Mm.
guess that's the best I can do without giving too much away.
Yeah. I am so intrigued, like even just with the first three things you said, right? Like time travel, art, mystery, historical fiction. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like those sound right up my alley. I wouldn't like think that, right? When someone's like, oh, what type of books do you like? I wouldn't be that specific, but that sounds right in there.
Awesome. Well, that's what I like to read.
Yeah.
So because I love it, I love adventure so much. And I think that's one of my like past lives and the jobs I used to do. I used to be a backpacking guide too.
Yeah.
So like I love these different things. And so when I read, I need a lot of things tossed in at once. I need
Yeah.
kind of like a multi-genre book. Or I shouldn't say I need it. I like it the most. That's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
really,
yeah.
you know.
So, when you wrote this novel with the dual timelines, do you write them simultaneously or do you kind of write one and then the other?
It's such a great question. This was the first dual timeline novel I had
Okay.
attempted. And I wrote it the way it appears in the book. I wrote it chronologically. So
Okay.
I actually start in present day, and then we go to 2004 and then 1804, and they flip flop through the book back and forth. And that's how I wrote it.
Okay.
I went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's so funny, not until I've been on book tour and been talking about like the way I did it, have I even thought about the fact that, God, I really did it the hard way.
Yeah.
Like, why did I do it? But that's just the way it came,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like when the creative, our creative mind is working, you just kind of have to trust it and go with it. And there's something to be said there. But I would think like, oh man, that would be really hard because it's like, how do you make sure it's all connecting? Like the one timeline is all connecting on the one side in the 1800s, right? And then the 2001 is like all connecting there. Like, but I imagine that's where editing and all of that, you get that.
That is where editing
Yeah.
comes in. And it just kind of, I had a mentor in graduate school who told me, if you can just, because when I wrote my first novel, I wrote in scenes. So I would write a random scene here, and then it could be, months later, I'd write it. Whatever sparked my curiosity, I would do. And then I had to kind of piece it together like a jigsaw puzzle, which is a fine way to do it, but it took forever.
Yeah.
And so she encouraged me with a miniaturist assistant that I just needed to sit, probably because she knows I have a raging undiagnosed case of ADHD. And so she was like, you just need to sit down and just let it out and write it chronologically all the way through, because then you can go back and edit.
Yeah.
Then you can go back and that's what I did. And so she told me that when you do it that way, you'll end up at the end and you'll look back and you will have made connections, these kind of woo-woo connections in the story that you didn't realize you were doing at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, all right, whatever, I'm tired. I have young kids. Like, we'll see. And she was totally right. Like so it kind of did it itself. Like the connections between the two chapters. I'm sure I was trying to do this too, but it really did. It really did kind of work out that way, which was such a relief.
Yeah. And I'm imagining too, right? It's like you didn't have to think that hard. Like they just came out on their own, right? These like subtle changes. So it wasn't like, how can I fit this piece in and do that?
Right.
Like how to make that so challenging. Like,
yeah. And I think that's where the history helps too, because I am a massive history dork and I had done a ton of research. And so one of the many premises of the novel is that time is mysterious and fickle, and there are holes in the historic timeline, and it's porous. And so I really do believe that. And so that made it easier with the history, with seeing, okay, well, we're not all that different. 2004, 1804.
Yeah.
These are the same things that keep pinging, and the same wants and dreams people have. And so that makes it easier if you believe that.
Yeah. I think that's the beautiful part of reading historical fiction, or in general, really, is getting to walk in someone else's shoes and you kind of grapple with what they're grappling with in the story, but it challenges you at the same time in just your world too. Like, even though this is a fictional read, but it allows you to explore, again, like maybe a life you would never be able to live, but also to see that we're not so different.
Yes. Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, what did you learn about yourself through writing this novel?
Oh gosh. I learned that I think I grow more myself and maybe more irreverent a little bit, like with each, the older I get. And with the book, I kind of let myself go with Gamble and let her kind of lead and talk in a way, with a lot of freedom, and the way that she presented herself and the thoughts that she had and the dialogue, the way that she talked, which ends up being a little irreverent and very authentic to her. And I think, since I do believe we're all our characters, it's so funny. My good friends are like convinced she's me. And I'm like, well, they're all me.
Yeah.
Like every character
coming
in the
from
book.
me.
Yeah. So I think that is one thing I learned, is that, oh, this is how I'm growing older, that my characters are kind of revealing, hopefully, the freedoms I'm kind of allowing myself to have as I get older.
That's beautiful. I mean, I don't know how you could write without having that creep in.
Absolutely. I don't either, but I'm sure people do without having it creep in. I mean, there are so many different types of writers, and I learned with each, especially on this book tour, I've learned with each other author that I've done events with and everything, it blows my mind how different we all operate,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of people come on the show. I'm actually not a writer myself. I've just been a lover of reading my whole life. So that's why I'm here today. But I think a lot of people have come on and said, like, you just have to trust your own process and your own instincts because we are different in that way, right? We all creatively work differently, and you just have to find what works for you and trust that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, so maybe another thing I've learned too is that, and probably with age too, is that it can change every time,
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
and I- and the perfect is the enemy of the good. That's a famous quote, and I don't know who said it, and I should,
Yeah.
but that has definitely been something that I'm now officially convinced of. When I was younger, a younger writer, I would spend weeks on the same 8 to 16 pages, just perfecting them before I
Wow.
would even move on. And that, for me at least, maybe not for some other writer,
Yeah.
but for me, it was stymieing. It's stilted the
Yeah.
growth of the story. And so I'm really still trying to learn that. I don't have it down perfectly yet, but I'm trying to remember just to get it there,
Yeah.
and then I can mold it and work with it.
Yeah.
Get smart people to help me do that.
Absolutely. Well, what is your wish for the reader when they pick up the miniaturist assistant? What do you hope they'll take away?
Oh, I hope so many things, but my biggest hope is that they are transportive,
Yeah.
that it is a transportive experience, that they just feel like they're somewhere else, that they feel like they're in 2004 and 1804 Charleston, that they get to escape's kind of the wrong word, but I think transported is the best word.
Yeah.
Because and I hope that the most over all the other things I wish, because that's what I love most about reading, is
Yeah.
the way that it takes us somewhere maybe even we think is familiar, but it's not. So it's entirely new.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think right now in my head if it was Kate Quinn or Kristen Hanna, and I cannot remember. One of them has been on the show, and they both have been, but they talked about historical fiction is very similar to writing fantasy because it's transporting you to another place and time. Actually, I think it was Kristen Hanna now that I'm talking about it. And like she's like, I had to recreate Paris during World War II. So you felt like you were there, which is very similar to writing a fantastical land, right? Of you have to create
Absolutely.
this new world and you want the reader to feel like they're in this. And I was like, wow. And I started this show because I thought I wasn't a fantasy reader. And it started with very simply of like, give us 3 book recommendations in a genre to try it and see if you like it. And you can't like, because I was like, well, how can I say I'm not a fantasy reader if I never read it? And so that was really my impetus initially when I started the show, was going to be this thing. But obviously at 177 episodes later now, like we've
Oh my
really,
gosh.
digressed from that, which is beautiful, right? Like there's so many themes and topics and ways you could take it. But it just made me, and now I love fantasy. And it realized because historical fiction was always my go-to, but I see now those similarities and why I love it, both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be like this visceral experience, and the reason I started writing historical fiction was because I loved history, and history was such a story to me. I had these
Yeah,
incredible, my family, it's true what they say about Southerners, like we love to tell stories, and we cling too hard to history sometimes. And I just came from this family of storytellers and readers, and you can't trip over a rock in South Carolina or North Carolina without tripping over history. So it's I just loved that so much as a kid, and I had these great history teachers in school that taught it in a way that made it come alive and made it feel real to me, but also exciting.
yeah,
And so I always blame them because they they made history come alive in a way that made me just want to turn it into a story, you
well,
know.
all I'm thinking is they just made you curious, and that's perfect.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Yes.
And they stoked that curiosity, like a
Yeah.
good teacher does. They saw something in me and they were like, "Oh." And so they just fed me everything they could, and kind of gave me a little room to do my thing, which I think are two of the most the greatest gifts a teacher can give you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you're on book tour for the miniaturist assistant right now, but do you have any other projects you're working on?
Yes, I'm so excited that we're getting into what I call hibernation season. So I am trying so hard to leave myself some space because I am beginning a new project, a new novel,
Okay.
another historical. Right now, there's no time travel, but it's I actually didn't intend for there to be time travel in the miniaturist assistant. But that's
Interesting.
okay. Yeah. But so I'm working on something set completely out of the South, but to a dual timeline with a historical period in each timeline and a woman based on a real character in history in each timeline.
I
So,
love that. Well,
um,
I'm excited
yeah,
to see what it's going to be.
that's what I'm working on. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about who you are as a reader. What genres do you enjoy reading?
Oh gosh, this is one of the exciting reasons I wanted to come on this podcast because I love to talk about books. I learned to read really early, probably like a lot of writers.
Yeah.
And I have been reading so long. I love to read almost everything. Um, but I love, and I know we already touched on this a little, I love kind of multi-genre stories, you
Yeah.
know. I love books that crisscross back and forth across genre lines and from maybe more commercial fiction to more literary fiction and back and forth and back and forth. Um, I love beautiful writing with a great story, you
Yeah.
know. That's probably the type of reading that I have loved the most. But I've been to graduate school twice for books and writing and literature and I was an undergrad English major. So um I just reading stories are my life. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And you've created a whole life around it, right? Between your retreats and your writing, and it's awesome. It's amazing. How in your busyness do you find time to read?
I think because I've always been such a reader and it's been kind of like breathing air, you know. So I read every day. I read every night. I have to read before I go to bed,
Yeah.
even if what's been happening lately at this point of my life is that I get like whopped in the nose from my book. Like it never fails when
Yeah.
I fall asleep and it whacks me in the nose. Um, so that is, and I like to read these tomes of
Oh,
books
yeah.
too.
So
So
a good
yeah, I
smack.
always a good smack. Um, so try to read every night. I don't even have to build it in because
Yeah.
I just am constantly reading. And now I'm reading more than ever because I'm reading other authors' books so that I can, you know, talk about them and post
Yeah.
about them and all the good stuff. I also choose to read. Sorry, I choose to read over maybe doing some other things. So, but
Yeah.
it's been such a habit for me that I've never not read every day, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like naturally woven in, it sounds like.
Yeah. Hmm.
Wonderful. Well, you've brought three books with you for your book flight today. Can you tell us how you chose these ones?
Yes, I was thinking about the types of books that I love, and I was thinking about historical fiction when I was thinking about my own novel, Miniaturist Assistant. And I was thinking, okay, what are three historical novels that I think do what I tried to do with the Miniaturist Assistant, which is to open the doors and windows onto women's lives and show that we share the same stories, you know.
Yeah.
So that's what and just take you on a great ride. Like that
Wonderful.
was that's my prerequisite.
Yeah. So, what's the first book you brought?
The first book I brought is The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon.
Okay.
And there are many reasons I love it. It's a Revolutionary era novel, historical novel set in Maine. And it's based on a real midwife named Martha Ballard, a real woman who lived in Maine at the time. And there's a murder and Martha keeps a diary. She's this incredible character and she's so authentically drawn and authentically realized. But one of the many reasons I love this book is from a craft aspect, from more of my like writer brain
Yeah.
aspect. I loved the fact that Martha is middle-aged and she's this fully realized dynamic character, which tons of middle-aged women are full dynamic. We just don't get to read about them as much.
I know.
So here she is, the focus of the story. And also Ariel Lawhon wrote this historical novel in the first person present tense, which is not a typical way that if you go to your bookstore, your library, you're not going to find a lot of novels written in that way. So it felt a little different. It felt very immediate, even though we're in, Revolutionary era, 1780s, I think 1780s Maine, late 1780s Maine. You feel like you are trudging through the snow. You are there at the murder trial. I just loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, she is such a wonderful character. And so you can see why that book, right? There's a lot of times I'll see hyped books for a while and I'm like, well, let's see if this stays, because we're all busy readers, right? So I want to make sure I'm going to pick up a book that's going to be for me. And you can see why that book, I mean, I'm still hearing about it, right? And it's just such an amazing book. And to your point of like, you really just feel like you're right there with the character. It's great.
And I think it's all Martha. I think she just knew this woman inside and out, and I would follow Martha Ballard anywhere,
Yeah. And I couldn't tell you any of the other characters' names, honestly, outside of Martha. So,
boy, if I thought about it, maybe, but not right now.
Absolutely. So that was Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. And then what's the next book you brought today?
The next one is The Lost Book of Eleanor Dare by Kimberly Brock. And The Lost Book of Eleanor Dare is a dual timeline historical novel set right around and at the very beginning, early World War II.
Okay.
But also in the New World, or the Lost Colony, and in North Carolina.
Okay.
So everybody probably grew up, a lot of people probably grew up learning about Virginia Dare, who was the first child who was born in the English colonies. And,
I couldn't have put that together for you at all in my own mind.
So in North Carolina and Roanoke, there was a lost colony that just disappeared. Or we're talking, 1580s.
Okay.
And so we have this dual timeline novel, and it's also a house novel, which I love. Set on the Georgia coast, the late 1930s. Sections of the novel are set at this estate called Evertell in the Georgia Low Country. And so I love a house novel. Like I don't know, there's something about it that makes me feel like everything is encapsulated in this world. And I love the Georgia coast, and I also love the Lost Colony New World, because it focuses on almost kind of like what could have happened, because the character there is Eleanor Dare. And Eleanor White Dare, and she it's kind of the story of what could have happened, what we think happened, and it's about women's stories and the stories that get lost in a lot of ways. So Kimberly Brock is just she is a true Southern storyteller. She's lyrical. There's a mystic quality to the way she writes, and so I always feel like you can kind of feel like the fog swirling around your ankles when you read one of her books.
That's a beautiful way to say that. I need to go pick this up because I need to go learn more about this lost colony. This is like a piece of history I don't know about, so I'm very intrigued. So that was The Lost Book of Eleanor Dare by Kimberly Brock. And then what's the last book you brought today?
The last book is The Literary Undoing of Victoria Swan by Virginia Pye. And it's another historical novel set in Gilded Age Boston, Massachusetts. And the central character is a woman who is an author of romance novels and adventure novels. And she is, she's finding her feminist voice throughout this novel, which is super cool. And but it's also a book about friendship and liberation, because she has this young male editor who she becomes very good friends with, and he's got his own kind of liberation story in Gilded Age Boston, which we know is such a buttoned up time. I mean, if you just think of the things those people had to wear, especially the women, they were, all they were trussed up like turkeys. I mean, they were just buttoned up. So
how long did it take them to get ready? Every
I mean,
morning.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
No wonder rich people had maids. They couldn't get their own clothes
I mean,
on.
yeah, you couldn't get your buttons on or off.
No, and just the tightness of it and the straightness and I would
Yeah.
die. But I had never read a novel like this, and I loved the Gilded Age setting. I loved the Boston setting. I loved the publishing house setting with kind of these men in this world sort of poo-pooing Victoria Swan a little bit,
Yeah.
and her just, you know, charging forward and being herself and through this world of publishing, but also this city and this time period, which was
Yeah.
notoriously buttoned up. So,
Which,
but I really did love the friendship between her and her editor.
yeah. And what I was going to say, I mean, it took such courage for women to do that at that time. So I love reading those types of stories because I love being like, would I have been courageous enough to do the same?
I think that all the time, especially when
Yeah.
I'm writing, these characters. I think, what choices would I have made? I hope I would have made these choices, but we don't know.
Yeah. And that's where I think when I was saying earlier, I think that's where it challenges you, right? Because you do think, okay, under this similar set of circumstances, would I have done that? I hope I would have,
Yeah.
but is that who I am? And then it kind of, you challenge yourself in that way, I think, even today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm convinced that we all share the same stories, and I'm convinced that, you know, 1800s wasn't that long ago. So
Yeah.
the more that we are curious and the more that we can walk around in somebody else's shoes, even a fictional character's shoes, that just makes us better able to walk around in our 2025 shoes,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My dad always said, like, you never know what's going on in someone else's story, right? And so just giving them a smile or, passing a hello, like just being kind and gentle, like you don't know what that angry person is mad about, right? You have no
Right.
idea
When
what
the person
happened
who
before
cuts
they
you off
got
in
there.
traffic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and that has just always stuck with me. So,
Yeah. It's a
so that
great
was The
lesson.
Literary Undoing of Victoria Swan by Virginia Pye. Well, thank you so much for bringing those books. I have only read the first one, so I have 2 new books to add to my list today.
Yay, fun.
Yes. Well, how I love to end our show is with a speed round of questions you can answer really quick. Are you a rereader?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. I comfort read, reread.
Love it. What is one book you've read that has changed your life?
Anne of Green Gables by
Oh,
L.M.
yes.
Montgomery.
Yeah.
Made me want to be a writer.
Love it. Where is your favorite place to read?
I love to read on boats, but
Ooh.
we have a big window seat. We renovated our 1940s house during the pandemic, and we built a window seat literally the size of one of the walls.
I
So
love
reading
that.
up there with my daughters or my dog rates very highly up there.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Lastly, what are you reading next?
Well, I have a massive stack of books beside my bed. I mean, I can see it from here, and it is tottering over as I look at it. But truthfully, but I'm going to read as soon as it arrives. The Black Wolf by Louise Penny, the Canadian
Oh,
author Louise
yes,
Penny.
I love her. Is
She
that the
is
Inspector? That's the next Inspector
That's
Gamache,
the
right?
next Gamache book. Yeah,
Oh,
Inspector Armand Gamache.
yeah. That
Um,
has never been on our book flight, and I absolutely love that series. So, what is this? Book 19,
Something like
18?
that. Yeah.
So, but
I think
listeners, it's so good. Yeah.
absolutely. And I was just thinking, I think the first one, Still Life, is one of the books I have handed to friends more than any others in the past decade.
Yeah.
And I came to her late. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I maybe started, it was when we lived in Sicily, so probably about 8 years ago. So there was a few out, so it gave me a few to kind of binge and get into the world of Three Pines, which is a
Ugh.
fictional setting. And whenever anybody asks me that question, like, what fictional setting would you go to? I'm like, oh, Three Pines, for sure.
Three Pines. Absolutely. Yes.
Yes. But it's a great, I wouldn't call them like cozy mysteries, but they are with the characters, kind of, right? I mean, it definitely is crime fiction, but the characters are cozy. So I
I
don't know.
think it's because it's so intimate. Like, I think
Yeah.
because they're these psychologically driven novels in a sense that she is delving so deeply into what makes us human, along with these wild, like murder mystery things that happen
Yeah.
to these
There's
people.
always a
So,
mystery being solved, but it's
mhm.
so much more than that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
But
I'm that's coming soon. I'm also
okay.
excited to read Alex Harrow's The Everlasting, her newest book, The
Yes. Yeah,
Everlasting.
I've seen that cover. It looks beautiful.
I'm really, and you were talking about, I am not a huge fantasy reader, so I am kind of dipping my toe into some of these fantastical elements. But I know it's based on like Arthurian legend and that kind of type thing, and I grew up on Arthurian legend. Like that was one of the first classics that I read
Yeah.
was the Arthurian legend. So I'm excited for that.
That'll be
And
wonderful.
then I'm also reading. I read lots of things at once, and I try to like switch my genres up. But I am reading Catherine May's the Electricity of Every Living Thing, a
Ooh.
woman's walk in the wild to find her way home. I think it's one of her. She wrote Wintering,
Oh,
which was a
yes.
big hit. Yeah, which was
Yes.
beautiful, and it's memoir.
Okay.
Um, but the Electricity of Every Living Thing. That's what I'm in the middle of reading right now.
Yeah. Oh, that
But I
sounds
could name you probably 10 books right
yeah.
now.
I read very similar. Like I have an audiobook going. I have two morning books. I have two evening books. And then it's just depending on my mood of what time of day and what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So, but I do
Absolutely.
think switching genres really helps you to be able to read multiple books at the same time. So
Yeah,
if you haven't tried it,
absolutely.
listeners, you should.
Yes, you should try it. It's really fun. It's not as crazy as it sounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I'm like, wow, I probably could have finished this book like 3 weeks ago if I had just stuck with one, but you're just
One
not
book.
in the mood to read
Yeah.
it, right? I'm like, no, I need something different right now.
Yep. I keep thinking of, I don't know if did you watch Gilmore Girls when it was
I
on
didn't.
TV?
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
did
gosh.
not.
When I was in graduate school, it was on, and that was like my break if I studied. And the one of the characters, she's a teenage girl, and she carries around like in her purse and in her backpack, even if she goes to a party, she carries around like 3 books so that she can always have one on hand.
Oh, yeah. That's the best thing, right? I mean, that's the key to success right there is always have a book ready to go.
Amen. Amen.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me today. I know your time is precious and I appreciate all you've given me.
Well, this was so much fun for me. There's not much I love more than getting to talk about books. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate you having me. It's been so much fun.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Bookish Flights with Katherine Scott Crawford. A big thank you to Katherine for sharing her heart for history, her writing process, and the reminder that time is never as distant as we think. I love how stories allow us to step into another century and somehow better understand our own. If you enjoyed this conversation, it would mean so much if you took a moment to follow the show on your favorite podcasting platform and left a rating or a review. As always, Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in our life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.